So my name is Andreas. I'm an assistant professor in the biology department here at AUC. And today I'm going to be telling you a bit about the work that I've been doing using the flipped classroom approach and how then I've been able to use that to help me during remote teaching. Okay, so my interest in applying new pedagogical strategies, and in particular with the flipped classroom approach and also blended learning, started about 4 years ago now with a project which was a collaboration between AUC, MIT, and AUB, and which was funded by the Abdallah Al-Warer Foundation for Education. And the aim of this project was to transform teaching and learning in the Arab region through online learning. So AUC was very interested in trialing the use of online learning. And one of my courses in the biology department was selected as one of the courses in which we were going to use a flipped classroom blended learning approach. So I'll tell you a little bit about how that works. So first of all, blended learning is a teaching strategy in which you use both online learning as well as face-to-face learning. So some of the educational content is delivered online, and then this is then combined with actual face-to-face learning. Okay. So in the case of the of this project that we were doing that I was telling you about, the online learning was completed by students taking a modified version of an online course on the Edx platform. And I've used this in 2 of my courses. So one of them is the MITx 700X, which is an introductory biology course, as well as the MITx 7.28X, which is a molecular biology course. So the students are able to go into the Edx platform, they register, and then they receive the educational content. And then when they come to class and we have our 2 sessions a week, what we do is we then actually, rather than take the educational content in class, we actually apply what the students have already learned online. So this is the flipped approach, right? So rather than taking the theory in class and then you do your assignments at home, the flipped approach is where you take the theory at home and then you apply the knowledge in class. Okay, so in class, we would then do, if I go back, so we'll do active learning activities, discussions, small group work, all that kind of stuff. And this is what I've been doing for a couple of years now, obviously pre-COVID. Okay, this is just screenshots of what the Edx platform looks like. It's actually a very nice and very user-friendly platform, both for the learners, as shown here on the left, as well as for the staff, as shown here on the right. Because as an educator, you can go in and you can modify it and you can set the dates and times in which you want the students to be able to access the material and so on and so forth. And the students too, it's a very easy, user-friendly interface, which again allows them without much difficulty at all to access the material that has been assigned. Okay. Now, when we started this project, we also wanted to know how effective this new kind of teaching approach was. So we started carrying out a pedagogical project in which we were assessing the effectiveness of using this flipped classroom blended learning approach. I did this myself in collaboration with CLT, and in particular with Rihem Niazi, who's one of the people that is in the meeting today. So what we did is we started to assess these endpoints. So we wanted to look at student engagement, student participation, actually with my pen, it might be easy, as well as student performance. And one final endpoint that we looked at is how well students retain information. And what we were comparing is a traditional approach without the flipped classroom, and then comparing that to the flipped classroom approach, and then studying these endpoints. Okay. The way that we did it is we did pre-course surveys, We also did a mid-semester small group instructional diagnosis, which is something that CLT offers. And in addition to that, we also did classroom observations. We used CLT officers for this, as well as TAs, which had briefed on how to make these classroom observations. And finally, what we wanted to, the point of all of this is to then assess how well students learned and how well they performed in the course. So this was the learning and achievement part, and then also to assess the overall learning experience of the students. I should also add that for the online learning part, the Edx platform, which we were using, is really nice because you can also get a lot of insight from there. So, for example, you can get data on how many students have actually completed the educational content, how often they log in, whether they are completing the assigned materials, whether they've been watching the videos or not, how much time they spend on each, and so on. So the combination of the analytics data that we were getting from the online platform, plus all the information that we were getting from our class, from the class environment, gave us a good indication of how well this flipped classroom blended learning approach was working. Okay, and actually we recently wrote this up and we submitted the manual to the Journal of College Science, Journal of College Science Teaching, and this has now been accepted for publication, so hopefully that will be out soon. Okay, so this is all pre-COVID. So last spring, obviously, when we had to switch to remote learning, the idea was, well, can we use this approach? Can we use the fact that we've got this, blended learning approach set up to our advantage? Because anyway, the students are going to be taking some of the material online. So I did this both in spring 2020 and in fall 2020. And I did it on 2 different courses. One was a intro biology course for non-science majors, and the other one is a 400 level molecular biology course for biology majors. So one is a very kind of intro level freshman level course, and the other one is primarily taken by junior and senior students. And so we did this, and then we started to collect information from the students on how they thought that the course went, and if they felt that actually using the flipped classroom approach actually was beneficial, and if it helped during the remote teaching period. Okay. Here I just have a little bit of data to show you. So in blue, I have the intro biology course. In green, this is the higher level, 400 level biology course. And we asked them some questions. So here, for example, we're saying how helpful was using the MIT online materials during the pandemic in comparison to other courses that didn't apply this integration. 0 being unhelpful, 10 being very helpful. You can see that for most students, their responses were in the range of 8 to 10. Particularly for the higher level biology course. Some students in the intro biology course didn't think that it was as helpful. Okay. A second question that we asked them was whether having this approach allowed the main objective of the course to be met even after the transition to the online mode of instruction. Again, we saw a similar pattern. The higher level biology course found it very, very beneficial. This was also the case for the majority of the students in the intro biology course, but again, a couple of responses didn't necessarily agree. What was also interesting, I'm not going to take too much time going through this, but these are now just looking at the intro biology students, and we asked them a series of questions, whether again, using the this approach helped during COVID with certain parameters, and a couple that stood out was students found that it helped them remain interested in the course content, and in some cases also helping them remain motivated in the course. And again, this was more pronounced in the higher level molecular biology course, in which all students found that having the recorded lectures via the Edx platform helped them remain interested in the course, as well as remaining motivated. So our conclusion from this is that we found that actually blended learning and online learning can be used during remote teaching, and it was actually very helpful and very effective. And the one thing that I wanted to point out is that it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody has to sign up and use some sort of MOOC or something like this. There's been some debate as to whether we should be doing synchronous learning or recorded asynchronous classes. And for a course that I'm teaching at the moment, what I do is that I record my asynchronous classes and then I post them to my students. They watch them at home in their own time. And then during our regular class time, we have synchronous classes. And then by Zoom, we do essentially the flipped class approach, in which we do active learning during our Zoom meetings. And then they watch my asynchronous recorded lectures in their own time. So I apply the same system. It's just that rather than using a MOOC or the MIT materials, which we no longer have available, instead I use my recorded lectures. Okay, I'll end there because we have about 4 minutes for questions. So thank you very much for your attention.
I don't know, I can't see the other hands, but I have a hand up. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes,
Let's
I can.
see. Okay, very quickly, because I got into a long debate with somebody in SSE yesterday about, using Zoom for lecturing as opposed to using the flipped classroom, and that person was very adamant that the face-to-face emulating the classroom was the way to go, and I thought otherwise. So I'm finding it interesting that even with your undergraduate students, it does help. Have you asked them if they would prefer to be fully Zoom as a regular lecture as opposed to having a blended approach?
So, okay, so we're supposed to have two sessions a week, right? So if we were on campus, I'd be meeting them twice a week for an hour and 15 minutes each time. I do that regardless. So I will do my 2 Zoom lectures a week every time, synchronous. And during that time, we will do active learning, activities.
Yeah, that's different.
Right. And then they can also ask any questions that they may have on the recorded materials. So the recorded lectures, that's kind of an extra. And that is actually there is some resistance there because the students are saying that, the workload is higher. We have a higher workload doing it in this way. But again, it's a mixed bag. Some students really like having the recorded lectures because they can watch them at their own time. If they, if they lose their attention, they can pause and they can go back. And also we always record our Zoom sessions as well. And I have a shared folder, a Google Drive folder in which I post all of those, and the students really, really like having that. That's actually one thing that I would consider going back to campus. I would really consider recording my classes and sharing them with the students.
Yeah, let me ask you this very quickly because I don't want to take the time. When you record it for the home, is it as long as what you have in class, or is it a shorter lecture?
No, I do the whole thing. It's normally, I'd say, 40 minutes to an hour instead of an hour and 20 minutes, just because there's not questions during the recorded, so I guess. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, a couple of people have their hands up. I think it's Ruxana. Is that how I say it? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great way, the way you have sort of validated your work. My question is not directly related to the flipped classroom model. I think this is a perfect model, and I actually been promoting it at your campus. My question is about the MOOC that you have used.
Yeah.
I was not aware that you could pick out some videos for your work rather than have the students go through the whole course. So just very quickly to know, how did you manage that? Is it possible?
No, unfortunately it isn't. So the reason why we were able to do it is because it was a collaboration between AUC and MIT, which meant that they gave us a customizable version of the MOOC. And this was for a 3-year period during which the project was ongoing. But if we want to continue using it, then we need to pay for it. And then once you have the license, then again they allow you to be able to customize the course. Otherwise, as you said, you can't just go in and pick out which pieces you want.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Because we are trying to promote an integration, but we are not very sure how to go about subunits into subunits.
Right. Although having said that, I think there's a great number of courses which have now become free of charge during the pandemic. So
Yeah.
there may be a lot of courses that you can use.
Thank you so much. That's great to know.
Thank you. There's someone that has their hand raised. It's just showing up as A on my screen.
Yes, we have 2 more minutes, and Dr. Alia has her hand up.
Dr. Alia, sorry. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you, Mr. Andreas, for this awesome presentation. I just wanted to recap quickly the idea of the flipped classroom. So basically, it all happens first asynchronously, where students individually sort of go through materials required for the lecture that is to be discussed later onwards through, for example, pre-recorded Zoom videos or materials to read beforehand. And then afterwards, they join the actual class or lecture. In this case, is going to be online due to the circumstances we're in, where you sort of actually instruct them about the materials they went through beforehand. That's the whole point of the flipped classroom, right?
Correct. Yes.
Exactly
Right. Yes, that's exactly right. Yes. So
okay.
Yes. Sorry. Was that your question?
Yes. So how do you feel it differs? I feel like face-to-face is way more effective compared to having it fully online. So based on your experience with this, how do you feel it differs, or which is more effective?
Yeah, of course, it's very difficult to recreate the classroom environment online. But actually, Zoom and breakout rooms is a really fantastic resource. I think us as educators have got better at using the tools that we have available, and becoming a bit more creative on how we can actually make our Zoom sessions more interactive. So I use a lot of small group work, and that has really helped. So yeah. You can't recreate it 100%, but it can still be very effective. That's been my experience so far. Thank you. Okay. I don't know if anyone else.
Sorry?
If there's
Excuse
no more
me.
questions, yes, Anna, please,
Yeah,
go ahead.
thank you, Andreas, for this very helpful presentation. But the main thing we're having from the students is the issue of complaining of the load and the time needed to manage with all this online learning. So I'm from American University of Beirut, Lebanon, and I'm sure we're facing the same troubles with students. And it was clearly obvious in one of your slides from the survey that was done. So and I'm also biology. So how did you manage to deal with this anxiety about the time and
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, 100. There is always going to be students which are going to be unhappy with that. So there's two things. One is that I try and get them to buy into the idea that this is going to give you a better learning experience. It may be that you'll have a slightly higher workload, but you will enjoy the course more. You will learn better. It will, ultimately your learning experience is going to be improved.
Yeah, I know. Like it's more about the skills of learning more than like like just getting done with this course. But at their level, for them is that like we have 5 courses, and if every course we're gonna do it flipped, so
The other thing I just quickly, because they're going to close us. The other thing I tell them that
oh yeah,
you won't have assignments at home. You'll do assignments during class time.